Hey guys, it's Cody Rants and welcome to my January reading wrap up where I'm going to tell you all about the 19 books that I read in January of 2025. I'm so excited to talk about all the books. I did read some really good books and I read some pretty bad books, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to tell you all my stats for the month. So like I said, I read 19 books. I read 6,443 pages. The genres I read were 6 young adult, 4 fantasy, 3 children's fiction, 3 romance, and 3 thrillers. My average rating was 3.96 stars, and the number of hours I listened to audiobooks was 41.53. So like I told you guys, I read 19 books, which is pretty exciting. I did read some really good books. I read a couple arcs this month, which is really fun. So thank you to NetGalley for sending me a couple arcs this month that I got to review for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get started because we do have 19 books to get through. So it's going to be kind of a long video. I'm going to try to do my reviews as quickly as possible since we do have 19 books to get through. So let's go ahead and get started. The first book I read in January was Volume 7 of Alice in Borderland, which follows the Jack of Hearts games and the finale of the King of Spades games. Now, if you actually watch the Alice in Borderland show, Chishia is in the Jack of Hearts games, but actually in the manga, he is not in those games, which I thought was really interesting because I watched the show before reading the book, so I was fully expecting Chishia to be in those games, and he wasn't at all. But I really enjoyed this book. I think I would have liked it better if Arisu was more in this volume because I personally feel more attached to Arisu than all the other characters in this series. So even though it was interesting to see the Jack of Hearts games, because there was nobody that I really knew in the game, I didn't really care what was going on, even though I know what happens in those games because of the show. I just really didn't care. Also, I don't really care about Oguni, so when he was fighting the King of Spades, I didn't really care what happened to him. So I didn't rate this as high as I probably could have if I actually cared about the characters. I did give this book 3.5 stars because it was fun. I just think that I would have cared more if I cared more about the characters in this story, and I just really didn't care. I would have probably rated it higher if there was more Arisu content, but it was okay. The next book I read was Gleanings by Neil Shusterman. It's a collection of short stories from the Scythe universe. Scythe is a dystopian novel about 2 teenagers who are training to be a part of the Scythes, who are basically the only way you can die in this universe. Everything's controlled by what's called a Thunderhead, and the Thunderhead is what maintains society, and they have Scythes who choose who dies and who doesn't, and this is basically just short stories from that universe. I do think that there were some really interesting short stories in here. It really did help me feel a lot better about Marie's ending in the Scythe original trilogy because I feel like her ending was really sad and she was really wrong, but this really helped me feel more at peace about what happened to her, because when I read Marie's ending, I sobbed uncontrollably like a little goo goo gaga baby. So I was really excited to see more things with her, and she did have a couple stories in here, and I did overall enjoy the short stories. I did rate this a 4-star, and I do highly recommend reading this series in general if you want a fun dystopian good time. The next book I actually read is an arc called My Friends by Frederick Bachman. It follows this girl named Louisa who is an orphan who's obsessed with a painting, and she goes to actually see the painting, and she runs into the artist of this painting, and he's actually dying, and he is so enamored by her when he meets her that he ends up leaving her the painting when he dies, and she meets up with one of his friends after she gets the painting, and she learns the history about the painting and about the artist himself. It is a really cute literary fiction novel that I received from NetGalley, so thank you to NetGalley for letting me get the arc for this. I overall really enjoyed the story. I don't really read a lot of literary fiction novels, and I do own a bunch of Frederick Bachman books that I have never read before, and so when I received this arc, I decided, hey, this is my chance to finally read a Frederick Bachman book, but I really wanted to read this story. It sounded really, really interesting to me and probably called to me the most out of all of his books, and I read it, and I really really enjoyed it. I thought Louisa was such an interesting, cool character. She had such a sad past. I really liked learning about the artist named C. Jats. His name actually all stands for his friends, which I think is really interesting. And you also find out his real name in the book, which I don't want to spoil. But I really enjoyed this overall story. Louisa was such a really interesting character. I really liked the writing. There was a lot of parts that I wanted to highlight because I just thought they were so beautiful. There is a lot of heavy topics in this book, so I would search trigger warnings before reading it. But I did really enjoy this book. I'm going to put the date that it comes out because I don't know off the top of my head. So if you want to read this book for yourself, I definitely recommend it because I really enjoyed it. But yeah, overall, I give it 4 stars and highly recommend. The next book I read was also an ARC that I got from NetGalley, and it's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. And I really enjoyed this novel. It was actually my first 5-star book of the year, and it follows this girl named Jane Jackson who ends up lying to her boss saying that she knows this guy that she did, like I think it was a TV show when she was younger with him, and the guy treated her really terribly because she said that she loved him or something. I think that's what happened. It's been a long time since I've read this, but I think she said she loved him to him, and he was like, ew, that's gross, like basically just like really mean to her after it. And she tells her boss that she's still in contact with this guy and he can make a song for a movie that she wants to make, and with the help of her co-worker Dan, she's gonna like go to one of the guy's shows because he's like a singer now, and she's gonna ask if he can do the song for the movie so the movie can be made. And it's a really cute love story between her and Dan, who's her co-worker. It's very summery, like it feels very summer vibes. They mention her wearing this bathing suit that she's like wearing on the cover of the book a lot. It also made me really want to watch The Notebook because they mentioned the movie The Notebook a lot. So after reading this, I watched The Notebook because it made me really want to. It was a very cute love story because it's a love story, obviously. But I really enjoyed it. I thought the chemistry between Jane and Dan was really well done. I didn't even really mind the third act breakup because it kind of made sense, honestly, with what was going on. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I would highly recommend reading it during the summer because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading my first Annabelle Monaghan book, and I have 3 of her other books, so I'm going to hopefully read those this year too because I absolutely adored this one. And I know Annabelle watches my videos. Hey girl, love you queen. But yeah, this is a very good book. Highly recommend, 5 stars. Next book I read was volume 8 of Alice in Borderland, which follows pretty much Chishia the entire time and him playing 2 games in Borderland. He plays Mahjong and Beauty Contest. You guys would probably remember Beauty Contest from the show, which is where they have the big bowls of acid above them and they have to choose numbers between 0 and 100. That is a very interesting game. I really enjoyed watching that game again in here and seeing the differences between that and the show. I enjoyed the Mahjong game. I just felt like it was really complicated and involved a lot of math, so it kind of went over my head and I was just like, sure, okay, if I played that game I would die because I'm not good at math. Math is not my strong suit, so I was really confused with that game. But I enjoyed the Beauty Contest one because it was all just random luck. It also had to do with math. Basically, reading this book made me realize that Chishia is very good at math, and I love that for him. That's great. I'm not good at math, so that was very confusing to me. Because this book was heavily based on math and because I just felt really dumb kind of reading it, I did rate this my lowest out of all the books in the series and gave it a 2.5. I'm so sorry, Chishia. I just am too dumb for your games and I would not survive them. And I probably enjoyed this book the least out of all the books in the series just because I didn't understand anything that was going on in that first game, the Mahjong game. So yeah, just not my favorite book of the month. Definitely not my least favorite book of the month. I'll let you know when I get there, but yeah, didn't really enjoy this one. Okay, the next 3 books I read are short stories, part of a series, and I'm just gonna put the pictures up here because it's a little easier to do it that way. But they're part of the Improbable Meet Cute series, which is on Kindle Unlimited. There's Worst Wingman Ever, The Exception to the Rule, and With Any Luck. And the Worst Wingman Ever, which is is the first book I read out of the series, is number 2 in the series, and it's written by Abby Jimenez, and I love Abby Jimenez, so I was really excited to read this one the most out of all of them. And it follows a girl named Holly who's a hospice nurse, and she's taking care of her dying grandmother, and this man named John mistakes her car for his friend's girlfriend's car and leaves a Valentine's Day note on her car, which has like sex coupons. Like, it's really funny, and they end up starting to leave notes back and forth on her car, and it's really cute. He also like helps like pump up her tire of her car because he saw that her car was like running flat. Like, there's just a lot of really cute things in this. And he's also like works in the building that her grandmother lives in as like a helper, like a maintenance guy, and they just have such a cute little romance, and I really enjoyed it. I thought John was just adorable, had so many green flags, so cute. I rated it a 4.5 stars. Definitely recommend if you want a cute little Valentine's Day short story. Loved it. The next book I read was the first book in this series called The Exception to the Rule by the authors Christina Lauren. If you don't know, Christina Lauren is a duo authors who work together named Christina and Lauren who write books, and this is a really cute story. So this follows Tara and Callum, who start sending each other emails when they're really young, like still in middle school, and they accidentally send emails to each other, and they spend the next like decade sending each other Valentine's Day emails back and forth and like talking to each other about their life, and they end up meeting up in real life. And it was really funny because Tara didn't actually know Callum was Callum. She didn't know who the guy was. Like, they don't use their actual names, they just have their email addresses and like the names they call each other. So he had no idea that T was actually Tara, and she didn't know C was Callum, and they're flirting, and they try to like go out and meet each other several times, but they're always like in other relationships. Callum ends up being her TA in one of her classes, and he figures out that she's Tara, like the T and the person he's been like emailing over and over and over again every single year since he was really young. And he ends up as like, hey, I gotta not be the TA for this class because I might be starting something with the student. And he befriends her and basically tries to get her to go out with him, even though he knows that he is Callum, like he's C in the emails. You get what I mean, I hope. But they're really cute, and they have a fun little romance story, and I really enjoyed how he broke it to her that he was the hot TA. It was so cute. Loved it. I did give it 4 stars just because there was a lot of emails in the beginning of the short story, and like I understand that format because you're trying to show us the emails. I would have preferred the emails to be a little better written because I felt like the emails were a little confusing to me, and I really didn't enjoy that format for the emails. I would have preferred it be written like regular, like a book, and then have the person explain like what is going on instead of like the email format, which is why I gave it a 4 star. But I did really enjoy it and highly recommend that story as well to read. And then I also read With Any Luck by Ashley Poston. Now this one I gave a 4.25 stars. So this one is about Audrey, who's cursed to have anyone that she kisses basically will meet the person they're supposed to end up with. It really reminds me of the story Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, where the guy Justin, anytime he dates someone, they like meet the love of their life. It's very similar to this story, and she's the best man at her best friend's wedding, and her best friend ends up being like missing the day of his wedding, and she's spending time with a man of honor to try to find her best friend for him to get married. And then you find out that the man of honor and her had like a past together, and it has a cute little romance story. I really enjoyed the mystery of trying to find out where the groom was, who's her best friend, where could he have ended up, and like why he's missing. It was just a very cute story. I loved it. I gave it a 4.25. It was a little slow for like a good 25% of the book, where I was like, this is not needed. Even though it is a short story, it could have been shorter. But I did enjoy it. 4.25. Highly recommend it. The next book I read was actually the graphic audio audio for Fourth Wing. So I am including this as 2 because I listened to part 1 of the graphic audio for Fourth Wing, but Spotify weirdly didn't have part 2, so I did have to read the second half of this book. So I'm including it as 2 because I want to keep track of my audiobooks on Storygraph. So even though it's technically 1 book, it's 2 for me because I listened to the graphic audio and then I read the other half. You don't have to include it that way. You might include it as 1, but because I like to also keep track of what I listen to audiobook wise, I did include it as 2 because of that reason. But I reread Fourth Wing because the new book Onyx Storm came out in January and I wanted to refresh myself with Fourth Wing before reading Onyx Storm. But I did enjoy my reread. I still think it is a 5-star. That's what I gave it the first time I read it, and I still think it is definitely still a 5-star for me. This is my special holiday edition with the black sprayed edges. But yeah, I really enjoy this story, and I will probably reread it again when the next book comes out because I really just enjoy reading this book and it's really good. The next book I read is Akawar, or also known as A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the 3rd book in the Akatar series, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. This book is way too long. This book is all about war, but baby, that war could have been shorter. Like, I was dragging my feet reading this. I did enjoy the first good chunk where it was dealing with Feyre being back in the Spring Court messing with Tamlin. That was a fun, goofy time. And then the whole, like, this big chunk in the middle, I was bored out of my damn mind. And then we got to the end, and then I was having a fun time again. So yeah, this book was just a bit of a struggle for me. I thought the whole, like, middle part was just really boring. There was some interesting things happening, but I was just a little bored. It was very mid for me. I gave it 3 stars. I stand by that. It is definitely just one of the middest books I've ever read. It really just gave me Crescent City House of Flame vibes, where I was just super bored for a big chunk of this book, and it was just completely unnecessary. I mean, is it ever really that serious? The answer is no. It did not need to be this long, Miss Sarah. So yeah, I gave this 3 stars. It was just okay. The next book I read was A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is the 4th book in the Akatar series. It is kind of known as like the winter special because it is a short little book. It's almost basically a novella, but it's a little over 200 pages. I thought it was just pretty okay. Like, I gave it a 4 just because I did like it and I had a fun time reading it. But did I really think it was necessary to read? No. You honestly probably could have skipped it if you really wanted to and you'd be fine. Like, I didn't think there's anything in here that you really miss that is important to the story. There was like a weird scene where Moore was driving to her house and there was like this weird creature watching her, and then they don't explain to you like what it was or why it was doing that. That was very weird. And also Lucian and Rhysand were being nice to Tamlin in this, which was odd because, like, why? But I did enjoy the story. I thought it was cute. I just gave it 4 stars for the vibes because the vibes were cute. And there was like also like some random wall smut, which was kind of fun. But yeah, it was just a cute little book. I had fun. Next book I finished was Iron Flame, part of the Empyrean series, which is the next book after Fourth Wing. It is a chunker. It is a big boy. And to be honest, the first time I read this book, it took me 2 weeks to get through it because it was just so boring. I'm also kind of having a hard time with Onyx Storm. It's just a little boring to me. I don't know how, but progressively the books have gotten worse in my opinion. A little spoiler for February's wrap up, but yeah, not having the best time with Onyx Storm. But yeah, I read Iron Flame again. This time I actually read it in 3 days because I listened to mostly the audiobook for this book, and I read like 500 pages, I think, like physically. This one it took me 3 days to get through. The first time it took me 2 weeks, so I did dramatically improve. I just thought this book is still exactly exactly what I rated it last time, a 3.5. It is just very mid. It is pretty boring. There are scenes that I really, really enjoyed. I think the ending, like the last half of the book, is way more interesting than the first half, but this one is a struggle to get through. I'm gonna be so honest with you. I think this series has gone downhill. Like, I think Fourth Wing 5-star, this one 3.5, and I think Onyx, honestly, I'll be shocked if I rated over a 3.5. I will be shocked because I'm over a third into the book. I'm like 35%. I'm bored out of my mind. I'm having such a hard time picking it up. I have started and finished 2 other books since starting Onyx Storm. Like, that's how hard it is for me to get through. It is rough, but I felt the same way with this one. I'm surprised I actually got through it in 3 days, but I did. But yeah, 3.5. It's still a 3.5. I am glad I reread it though before reading Onyx Storm, where I definitely would have been so confused. So confused. I totally forgot about Varish completely. So I'm so glad I reread this because I definitely think it helped me prepare for Onyx Storm, and I'm going to be really annoyed that I don't have to reread all 3 of these again before I read the 4th book. But yeah, this one is just, it's rough, but I finished it and I'm glad that I don't have to read that again for another couple years. But yeah, I finished Iron Flame. The next book I read was the last book in the ACOTAR series, A Court of Silver Flames. Is it ever really this serious, Sarah? Why? This book is way too long. Oh my god. It's just a whole bunch of effing nothing. Just nothing. If you want to read smut, this is definitely the book for you. This book is way too smutty. It made me so uncomfortable. Like, I love Cass. Don't get me wrong, Cassian, he is chef's kiss. But I did not need to read this. Like, I did not have a fun time. Also, this book made me not like Rasan. Like, Rasan was keeping the fact that Feyre would die from childbirth from her, and I was mad. Like, this made me not like him. How you gonna make me not like Rasan, Miss Sarah? That's rude of you. But yeah, I also don't like Nesta. I'm sorry, Nesta's annoying as hell, and reading her just doing it with Cassian, I don't care. I did not give a crap. This book was boring as hell. I gave it 3 stars just because it's so mid. Like, I do really like this universe, and I think that's why I rated it 3, just because I love these characters, but it's just mid. It's just okay. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's just blah. But yeah, not the biggest fan of this one. I hope the next book in the ACOTAR series is much better than this one. Also, please, for the love of God, make the next book shorter, because it's just never this serious, okay? Never this serious. The next book I read was Redeeming 6, and this might not look like a lot of pages, but girl, on Kindle Unlimited, this is over 1,000 pages, and it felt like it. I enjoy this story. Don't get me wrong. I love Joey and Aoife so much. I did not love Saving 6. To be honest with you, I was very bored reading that. This one was a lot better than that one because you do find out about their pregnancy and them dealing with their pregnancy, and Joey realizing that he was assaulted when he was drunk with one of the girls that was one of his classmates. So we're finding out a lot of other stuff about Joey. We're seeing his point of view of keeping 13, which is so really, really, really sad. But I did really enjoy this. Did I think that Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 were necessary though? Not really. I'm gonna be honest with you. I still think that Binding 13 and Keeping 13 were all that were necessary. I don't think Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 were necessary at all. But I did enjoy finding out what was going on with Joey and Aoife. I do like their characters. I did give this book a 4 because I did enjoy the story and I did have a fun time, even though it was 1,000 pages on Kindle Unlimited. But it is a good story, and if you do like the Boys of Tommen series, you will definitely enjoy this one. I still just think the first 2 books are the only ones worth reading, even though I did rate this a 4, if that makes sense. I just think you don't really need to read the other ones, but I had fun. The next book I read is actually my least favorite book of the entire month, and it is The Wedding People by Alison Espach, I think is how you say your name. But yeah, I really did not like this one, and it's so sad because I was so looking forward to reading this book this month. I had been thinking about it ever since I heard about it, and sadly it did not live up to my my expectations. It follows this professor named Phoebe who recently got divorced from her husband and goes to a hotel to kill herself, and she meets the bride of a wedding and befriends her, not by choice, but she befriends a bride that is getting married at that hotel against her will. Not the bride, but like them becoming friends. It's against her will. She doesn't really want to be her friend. She just wants to, just sit in her room and die in peace. But this bride has other plans for her. And her and this bride end up becoming friends. And Phoebe ends up becoming the maid of honor for her wedding randomly. And she ends up deciding not to kill herself and just hang out with this wedding party. And it's a really interesting story. I mean, I do like Phoebe, but there's a lot of things that Phoebe does in this that I really have an issue with. And I also hate the bride. Like pretty much everyone in this book I do not like, and this book is a lot darker than it looks. Like you would probably think, oh, fun little wedding book. No, this book is very dark, and it was a lot darker than I thought it was gonna be, which made me really uncomfy. And I got to the point where I had like 100 pages left, and I was just mad that I was reading it. Like I really wanted to DNF it, but I wanted to find out what happened to Phoebe at the end, so I powered through and finished it. But yeah, did not really like it. I gave it a 2-star just because I liked the first like third of it, and then it really lost me in the middle, and then I was just mad at the end. So yeah, didn't really enjoy this. 2 stars. I don't recommend it, to be honest. The last 3 books that I finished in January were 3 of the 4 books from the Naturals series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. We have The Naturals, Killer Instinct, and All In. I read all of these in under 2 days, I believe. The first book, The Naturals, follows Cassie joining this program by the FBI called The Naturals, where she is working with Dean, Michael, Leah, and Sloan, who are all trying to solve crimes in the FBI. And right now they're trying to solve murders that are very similar to Cassie's mom's murder. It is a very fun story. I really enjoy all the characters. There's also a love triangle between Cassie, Dean, and Michael, which is really cute, and I really enjoy that aspect of the story. I also would have picked the same person she picked, so good job, Cassie. But yeah, this is a fun Criminal Minds vibe type of book, so if you're really into Criminal Minds, you would probably really enjoy this book. I loved it. The second book in the series, Killer Instinct, is actually my favorite read of January. I absolutely ate it up. This one focuses more on Dean and his dad, because there are a bunch of crimes that are very similar to his dad, because his dad was actually a serial killer, and they're solving crimes that are very similar to how his dad killed people, and they think that he has an apprentice who is committing these murders. It is so fun. Literally, I got to like a third of the book, and you would have to pry the book out of my cold dead hands because I could not put it down. I sat and read until I was done. I had such a fun time reading this book. This is definitely my favorite book out of the whole series so far. Highly recommend just to get to this book. And this is also on Kindle Unlimited. I think the first and the second book are on Kindle Unlimited, so if you want to read them on there, it is available to you, but the other 2 books are not, which is kind of sad. Next book is called All In. I like this book too. This one focuses kind of more on Sloan, because Sloan is from originally Las Vegas, and the team is sent out to Las Vegas to solve these crimes from this cult, which is super creepy. You actually don't know it's a cult at the time, but you find out later on it's a cult, and they're doing all these crazy sacrifices and weird things going on. Apparently this cult has been around since like the 1800s, maybe even before that. It is super creepy. You're gonna learn all about Sloan and her history with her dad and the drama between her and her dad. I really like this. You also are dealing with Michael and things that he has going on in his life, which is really sad. I think this is definitely my least favorite out of all of them, but I did really enjoy it, even though it's not as good as the first 2 books, but I did enjoy it. So I rated the first book 5 stars, the second book obviously 5 stars, and I gave the third book just a 4-star just because I was kind of bored in the middle of the book, but then when I got towards the end, I was just freaking out, having a fun goofy time. So yeah, 5-star, 5-star, 4-star. Overall, I think the series is like a 4.5 stars because it is really good. I just think that there is some parts of the story that I don't think I care about, but that's just a me problem. Like, honestly, I like Sloan, but I don't need a whole book about Sloan. No offense to Miss Sloan. I don't care. You You also find out a lot of stuff about Cassie's family and like her mom in this book, which is interesting. But this just dragged pretty hardcore for me until like the last like 100 pages, and I was holding on for dear life. I was like you know, Beyonce from the Grammys, like that pose of her just being like, oh, like that's me getting to that part and then reading the rest of the book. Like it was just pretty good. I also have all the tabs matching the colors of the books, which is fun, and I really enjoyed doing that. But yeah, I annotated all of these and had a great time. I'm really excited to finish that series hopefully in February. But yeah, that is the last of the books that I read in January. Yay. So that is the end of my January reading wrap up. Those are all the books that I completely read for the month of January. I hope you guys really enjoyed my reading wrap up, enjoyed learning about all the books that I am reading. I had such a fun time reading this month. I read 19 books, which is quite a lot. I think that's the most I've ever read in my life in 1 month, which is great. I've only read 2 so far in February, and it's the 4th. Like, I'm having a fun, goofy time reading, but I'm trying to focus kind of more on romance for February because it is the month of love, because Valentine's Day is this month. But we'll see what I finish. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys would like more monthly wrap-ups, leave a like when you watch this video. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm so tired. I actually just went to dinner with one of my friends and I'm so sleepy now, but I'm glad I filmed this and got it done. But let me know what you guys think about the books that I read. Let me know if you've read any of them down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.